So Mod 6 is about exponents and scientific notation. So let me go over these 7 problems with you. Now, the rule is if the bases are alike and you're multiplying, we add the exponents. If the bases are alike and we're dividing, you keep that base and you subtract the exponents. So although they didn't do this, if it was 3 to the 8th times 3 to the 5th, you keep the base and add the exponents. But if it is 3 to the 8th divided by 3 to the 5th, we keep the base and we subtract those exponents. So it would be 3 to the 3rd. So be careful of that. Now, number 2, I'm going to show you 2 things. This, anything to the 0 power but 0 is equal to 1. So this is equal to 1. Now, if it looked like this, only this turns into a 1. There's still that negative not included, and so it would be negative 1. So watch that. Be very careful, okay? Okay, let's look at number 3. Things on top, numbers, just multiply. 4 times 5 is 20. If the bases are like x to the 6th and x to the 1st, you don't see it, put a 1. You add the exponents. So keep the x, add the 7. Okay. Now, 20 over 10 is just the number 2. The 2 is in top. 10 goes into 20 exactly 2 times. Now, if you think about the x's, you could do the rule 7 minus 9 is an x to the negative 2. But that gets you a negative exponent, which they don't always like. So you still would have to convert it. The way I think about it, when it's showed like this real nicely, I have 2 extra x's down in the bottom. So it would be an x squared in the bottom. Okay. Now let's talk about decimal notation versus scientific notation. 4 is showing scientific. They want you to write it with decimal notation. 5 is the opposite. That's decimal notation. Now, if it's just a whole number, you don't need to put the 0.0. I noticed some of you were doing that. The decimal is just implied to be at the end, okay? So that's decimal notation. We're going to flip it to scientific. So let's do both. If this is negative, we are going to take the decimal and we're going to jump 5 places to the left. The jump under the 4 counts as one of the jumps. So I'm just going to write the 463, okay? And then remember, I needed to count the 4 under the 4 as a jump. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me scooch that over so we can see it better. Then my decimal place, and you could put a front 0 for clarification purposes, but again, check. Under the 4 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Decimal point. Okay. If that were, now I'm going to just write something different here, but if that were 4.63 times 10 to the 5th, we would move the decimal to the right 5 places. Going under or jumping past the 6 and the 3 count as 2 out of the 5. So it's 463. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's where our decimal place would end up. Okay. Now let's do 5. We want it to be 2.7, so we want our decimal place to jump, so the number we get is between 1 and 10. And then we want to think, how many places do we move? We move 3 places, and that number was bigger than 10, so that's a positive thing. That's a good thing. It's big. It's a positive 3. Okay. Now let's take a look at 6. When multiplying or dividing things in scientific notation, multiply or divide the front pieces. So you would do 4.5 times 8.2. Okay. So do that first, and then take care of the tens. 10 to the 3rd times 10 to the 2nd. Now, 4.5 times 8.2 is 36.9. And then 10 to the 3rd times 10 to the 2nd, keep the base, add the exponents. Now, here's the problem with that. This number is not between 1 and 10, so we need that decimal place to move over. It's bigger than 10, so we're going to add 1 to the 5. Now, what do I mean by that? 3.69 would scooch that over, and we would add 1 to the 5. So if you got to scooch it over, because it was bigger than 10, you add to the original exponent on the 10. If it is smaller than 10 and we had to move it to the right, we're going to subtract. Okay? And then it says the mass of one hydrogen atom is shown. Find the mass of 3,000 hydrogen atoms. That's a multiplication. So I'm just going to show times 3 to the, or 3 times 10 to the third. Okay, so if they both are in scientific notation, let's keep that there. Okay, 1.67 times 3 is 5.01. And then 10 to the negative 24 times 3 is, keep the 10, add the exponents. Negative 24 plus 3 is negative 21. So that's a little bit about powers and scientific notation. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.